Hi, I'm McCasland, and for our TED626 Safe Schools project, I decided to focus on the positive behavior intervention and support. So before we get started, I just want to say more of the reasoning of why I chose this one. I do have my undergrad and degree in psychology, so we learned a lot about positive reinforcement and stuff like that, so I really try to run my classes that way. So before we get into the definition exactly, I wanted to do a little bit of my ideas when I first thought of it. So when I run my classes, I try to use positive affirmations as opposed to negative ones. So if we're playing soccer, for example, if the kids are using their hands, instead of saying, oh, don't use your hands, don't use your hands, I can say, oh, let's use our feet instead. I like the way you're using your feet. So just kind of put more positive light on it. Or if all of my students were late to class, instead of saying, oh, like we were all late to class today, I can just highlight the positive in it and say, oh, you know what, I like how we all made it to class today. I really appreciate it. So positive behavioral intervention support or school-wide positive behavior. What that means is basically the goal of it is for all students to learn behavior as they're learning their core subjects. So in addition to learning math and science and all of that, they're also learning pro-social behaviors. And their focus is really on prevention as opposed to punishment, because every student has the ability to learn good behaviors. And we just need to start with the students early so they only know the good behaviors. So this is not a form of therapy, it's more of a framework for teachers and the administrators to follow for their students. Let's see. So there isn't a restriction on consequence-based strategy with this. It's kind of up to the teacher's discretion, but their main goal is to reduce the inappropriate behavior, more of like a positive framework and corrective feedback. So corrective feedback, that would be something as, oh, like kind of like the soccer example. I'm correcting and giving feedback rather than punishing or getting mad at them for using their hands. So as a school, everyone should want to maximize their students' success. So that it can't only be done with the teacher, it has to be the admin and all of the staff. They need to follow all of the similar framework, so all of the students are receiving the same feedback. So an example, another one I thought of, so if a student wants attention, we need to find other ways to give the student attention. Because if the student wants attention and they're not getting it, that's when they usually act out, like banging the table or talking to a peer or doing something they're not supposed to be doing. So with those, specifically for PE, if I have a student that wants attention, I need to catch it early, and I can have him or her maybe lead stretches for the day, or maybe be the team leader for the day, or help clean up the equipment, because that's more of an appropriate thing to do rather than acting out. So according to PBIS, if a student is unresponsive to that, you need to go back and find the function of their behavior, so the cause of it, and focus on their appropriate skills. Even if they don't have a lot, just highlight them. And to really focus on the school environment and your classroom environment to remove the antecedents of that behavior. So basically the triggers. So an example of this, let's say that I have Bobby in a class and he's very uninterested in the way I'm teaching. He's never focusing, he doesn't like it. I can rewind and go back and see what Bobby is interested in. So for example, if he likes maybe cars, I can incorporate cars into my teaching or use cars as an example, so that way I am catching him early and getting his attention early before I lose it. So some personal takeaways that I got from learning about PBIS. You need to go to class with the correct mindset. If a student is acting out, don't take it personally, because I feel like when teachers take it personally, you're more prone to acting on emotion rather than reacting in favor of the student. So you want to set up your students for success and not failure. So don't punish or take out a student of the class if they're disrupting, because that might be an escape behavior. So what that means is, say I don't want to do my work and I'm crying, I'm banging the table, the teacher's going to kick me out of class. So I got my way. So my behavior was reinforced, the behavior of crying. So I learned that crying is a way to get me out of taking my work. So instead of doing that, just substitute the crying behavior for something else. Let's see. So it did kind of remind me of case study 1 of the positive behavior approach. So just keeping students engaged before they get bored or act out. And as Morish was saying, understanding your students in the 7 positions. So the boredom, the aggression, and stuff like that. Let's see. One last point is I don't want to scare my students with punishment. I want them to be motivated to do the right thing without having to ask them. So that goes with starting early and focusing on promoting appropriate behaviors as opposed to inappropriate. So all of these resources were online, so teachers and family in the community can access them. So I got my information from understood.org, the Moorish video, some points from Kagan and Scott, and PBIS.org.